Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. I'm Nick.
And I am the mighty Thor,
Oh, no.
with my powerful weapon of Stormbreaker, here to talk manga with you all today.
I listened to a podcast hosted by Thor. Sure. That's what's going to bring in the views.
It is. This is what
Verily.
we're here for. We're here Thor. That's what we're here Thor. I need to brand better.
Would not listen to a podcast where he just kept on making Thor puns.
Are you sure? Would it make you
Pretty sure.
Thor in your feelings? You'd have Thor feelings about it?
Yeah. Yes.
Stormbreaker, Nick!
Yes, well, I'm the God of Thunder, and I say you'll listen to me or I'll zap you or something.
What may have sounded like a child's toy made of plastic falling to the ground was actually Stormbreaker, made of the last uru of a dying star and forged in the flames of a space station where Peter Dinklage is a giant.
Yeah, that is an accurate description of what happens in that scene.
I will be... what scene?
I'm sorry, that is an accurate description of events that occurred during the Infinity War. Yes.
Well, I want to be clear. I'm not Marvel Thor. Now, I may be wearing sunglasses and rather comfortable attire and wielding Stormbreaker, much like the beloved character Fat Thor from Avengers Endgame. But I'm just Thor from mythology.
Just in general.
Just in general.
Okay. I may have some questions to ask you about things that you fucked then, and things that have, birthed you such. Because...
Was it Jotunheim, the realm of the frost giants?
No, I'm talking, not figuratively fucking.
My knowledge of Thor history is pretty limited beyond that. A lot of meads shared in Valhalla and so forth. I only played a little bit of Smite, so I don't really remember all of the lore.
We have so much manga to talk about today, so I'm just going to move past all of this. By the way, I did read some of Tokyo Red Hood. I stopped reading it. There was a little girl who had sex with a guy, and imagine being torn apart by a wolf thing. And so I saw a naked 11-year-old whose guts were hanging out, and I was like, I'm done. So just general request for everyone out there. If you want me to read a manga, please make sure there's no naked 11-year-olds in it first. I read 93 plus chapters of Nymphet's Kodomo no Jikan for you guys. You don't need to recommend any more Lolicon series. I don't care if it's incidental. I don't care if it's not the point. No more naked 11-year-olds. That's that. Because if I get one, I'm just going to say, there's a little naked 11-year-old in this, so I stopped reading it. And that's going to be it, So, unless someday I get crazy and we're like, hey, let's read Elfin Lied or something like that, then no more. I'll go ahead and announce ahead of time the last manga we're covering for Halloween month is actually going to be Chainsaw Man. And that's going to be our catch-up. So, yay.
Yes, I have a letter from Chris, who left this because he knew that I was going to go down. I don't have it with me because props are not my strong suit. Unless you're talking about the mighty Stormbreaker. In which case, I have that verily right here. He basically says that was a mistake to have recommended that series, and suggested instead recapping the much beloved 90s movie Mouse Hunt, where Nathan Lane and another guy
And another guy.
Thor doesn't remember exactly who was in it. They try to catch a mouse, and it eventually ends with them making a mouse yawn factory or something. Food yawn, something like that.
With cheese, but
didn't they have a peanut butter and jelly one or something like that?
Right, they took their father's old string factory and they used it to create novelty foods.
Yes. So perhaps instead of reading the story of the young girl being disemboweled, you could watch that instead. I'm sure it's on Netflix.
Probably have a more fun time watching Nathan Lane and Lee Evans is his name chase this little incredibly intelligent mouse around and eventually cause their entire mansion to collapse because they tried to drown it by pumping a bunch of water into the walls.
Which is not a good idea.
No. Anyway, we have a lot of manga to talk about, despite the fact that we aren't talking about Tokyo Red Hood any further than what I talked about. So, let's do it. My Hero Academia, chapter number 247, Status Report.
But Nick, don't you mean status rethought?
I'm going to go over there
Stormbreaker
and hurt you. No man who says such awful puns could possibly be worthy of wielding Mjolnir.
This isn't Mjolnir, this is Stormbreaker, made of the Uru last dying star, forged to space station by a giant Peter Dinklage.
The fact that you call him a giant Peter Dinklage is very suspect to me.
I told you, I'm not the Marvel Thor. They're very different.
So there's a literal giant Peter Dinklage in space who forges hammers and axes and stuff?
Yeah, just this one. He may have done them before, but
that one.
But I believe Thanos broke his hands.
This is very...
Also, there's a Thanos in Greek mythology.
This is very close to... For someone who says he's not the Marvel
I'm not the Marvel Thor, but I recently did get done doing an adventure with Tony Stark.
I feel like I would have heard of the actual Tony Stark, considering he's a billionaire.
Could be a different one.
Different one, okay.
Could be a different one. You probably haven't read all of the adventures of Thor.
Marvel Thor or you Thor?
Me Thor. Marvel Thor, I mean, isn't even that big of a deal.
I definitely haven't read all of Marvel Thor, so...
Of course. It's too much. It's expensive. Let's stop talking about manga, Nick, and let's talk about the high prices of the American comic book industry.
Why is this relevant?
It's egregious.
Okay.
All right, now we can talk about manga. We talked about the high prices, and now we can talk about
All right,
manga
cool.
Again.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
I'm so tired. Okay, so... all right. The chapter of My Hero Academia basically comes down to Endeavor going to the three people that he is taking on as his temps and saying, "Hey, what's your deal?" And they tell him their deal. That is what happens in this chapter. He asks them what they need to master, how they need to improve, and what they need to learn. And they just kind of go down the line from Deku to Bakugo to Todoroki, saying what they're trying to get out of this hero learning course thing. And Deku says that he wants to be able to control his power and actually move around properly. He also explains the black cord quirk that he's recently unlocked. And he launches into one of his typical long-winded, very quick, mumbly explanations. And Endeavor actually follows it along with it pretty damn easily. And he says something interesting, which is, "You've suffered due to your quirk." so you are one of us. So perhaps this has to do with the whole thing with the genetic experiments with Shoto and such, if he has suffered due to his own quirk. Deku is confused by his comment, and it's never really explained or anything like that, so he talks to Bakugo instead. And he says that he has come to figure out what he can't do, because his quirk is very useful. It's a very straightforward ability, but it's very strong and allows him to do pretty much everything. But he has learned from Deku's example that having that strong quirk doesn't make him the strongest person. His goal is to surpass the number one, and thus he has come here to find out what it is that he's missing. So Endeavor's like, all right, let's get going, and starts to lead them out. But Shoto says, what about me? And Endeavor's like, well, you're here to master Flashfire. I know that already. But he says that he kind of clearly has had this prepped. He's like, no, Dad. I want to tell you this thing so that you know what's up, so that you know you don't control me, but I kind of want... Shut up. I had this speech prepared, and you will listen.
I've been practicing this for the past 2 weeks. You're going to take it this week, God damn it.
I didn't practice in front of the mirror for nothing. So, Todoroki says that he has basically opened his eyes more recently as a result of being alongside of Bakugo and Deku. And he says that the man that he admires is the one Mom and I watched on the TV back then. And as a floating hero, in order to become a man worthy of the title, I came here of my own free will. I'm using you for my own reasons, so I'm sorry this isn't going to go how you want, number one. Let's stop the father-son crap in front of my friends. So, pretty straightforward, just says in front of everyone, I don't respect you as a parental figure. You're the strongest hero, and I'm going to get, and I'm going to use that. But fuck you still. So, Endeavor actually looks pretty upset by this for a brief moment. But he remembers the stuff that Todoroki had said before, the last time that their entire family met up together. And he thinks to himself that he had thought that Shoto was willing to open his heart to me. And he's like, wow, I was a real idiot for thinking that. But he's like, all right. And they head out to go on patrol. And he says that there are 3 things that a hero tends to specialize in: rescue, evacuation, and battle. And normally when a hero sets up their agency, they emphasize either rescue or battle, but his agency does everything. So he gives them some pretty straightforward but general advice, like you've got to be able to know your own territory very, very intimately so that you can pick up on even the smallest disturbance. You've got to get to the scene faster than anyone. You've got to keep damage to the minimum. And he even says, if civilians get close, blast some heat to make them back off. You know, set something on fire. That way they'll know to stay away from you. And he says, but that's just your starting point. You've got to keep all that in mind. You've got to act very quickly. And the difference between learning at UA and learning out here, at UA is it's effort that matters. Out here, it's experience, and you need a mountain's worth. So your job here is to conquer the experience barrier. So this winter, show me that you can just once beat a villain faster than me. And that's the end of the chapter. It's pretty short. It's like literally only like 13 pages long this week. But it's a pretty cool little character chapter for several different characters, getting a lot of development. So,
yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing that last week's kind of odd, here's where everyone's at chapter is maybe just there to sort of push us to the idea that we're not going to be bouncing around other things, that our focus from here on in, at least for the short term, is these 3 characters, which I think honestly is probably a good thing. While I always appreciate my hero like featuring more characters and developing them, like these are the 3 that we kind of want to see, I guess, the most of, or at least have been given the most reason to be the ones we see the most of. So I'm intrigued to see how this develops.
All right, we're gonna move on from there to Boruto, number 39.
Don't you mean Thoruto?
I do not. At all.
Nick, let's sing the classic Thor song. Da da da.
There's a classic Thor song.
Da da da. It's from the movies, Nick. But I'm not affiliated. Once again, I'm not affiliated with the movies. But you do know the Thor theme song from the movies, correct?
No.
Well, why?
Because I don't know the Thor theme song from the movies. Are you insinuating
the Thor music isn't the most iconic part of the MCU?
The Thor music isn't even the most iconic music from the Thor movies.
I'm gonna have some strong words with my agent.
Yeah, with Iron Maiden. How dare they?
It's uncalled for.
Boruto, number 39, Proof. So this took a different direction than I was really expecting. Obviously, last time Naruto had been captured, Kawaki reacted to this because his little artificial hand popped off because he was no longer in contact with Naruto's chakra. And symbolically, the portrait of Naruto fell to the ground and the glass shattered. Oh no, he's in trouble. Sarada shows up just at that moment. It's a very odd little detail because, like, as she's like urgently getting inside, she pauses to take her shoes off. So you gotta be polite when stepping into someone's home, obviously. I know it's a whole like thing in Japanese culture in general. Oh, take off your shoes and stuff like that. But it's just a odd little thing. It's like, oh no, there's trouble. Is there?
No, this is
okay.
It's very relevant across. I remember once Captain America was fighting alongside me, and we transported ourselves back up to Asgard. He didn't take his muddy boots off, and the Rainbow Road was just filthy for months.
Did you take your boots off?
No, I don't need to. I'm the almighty Thor. I hold my mighty weapon into the air of Stormbreaker, and lightning crashes down, and it cleans me sometimes. I'm not the Thor from the movie, but in Endgame, when lightning crashed down and his beard got all braided and everything like that, sometimes thunder cleans.
Sure. I'm just imagining Thor being like, I don't need to wipe my shoes and just...
I'm the king of Asgard. Fine. Yeah. That mud was already there.
Kawaki is non-responsive to Sarada when she's trying to ask what's happened. Boruto and Mitsuki show up at that moment. Mitsuki's like, yeah, I get to do something.
Kind of.
Kinda, a little bit. Before anything can happen, suddenly a shadow stretches out and snags Kawaki, and Shikamaru arrives with some guys. And so Shikamaru basically reports what has happened, according to the information that they have, that the enemy had appeared and then disappeared along with the Hokage. And so he's like, you were here, right, Kawaki? You've got to explain to us what happened. He has one of the guys with him, apparently named Tasuki, erect a barrier around the block, the house, the yard? I don't know. It includes Naruto's house inside of it, and it's not especially big. That's all that I know. And this way, they've all been sealed inside of it, so Kawaki can't get away. And he also says that it will thwart any enemy enforcements. So he has the men go and search the house for any traces of Naruto and for the enemies that encroached upon the village. Then he releases Kawaki from the Shadowbind Jutsu, but he's like, no, we've got you, inside the barrier. You can move around as you like, and I'll, follow Naruto's wishes in that regard. But he basically, over the course of the conversation, pretty quickly says, like, I still don't have a reason to trust you. I have not trusted you since the moment I laid eyes on you. And so I'm not convinced that you didn't have anything that you didn't. I'm not convinced that you did not have something, yes, to do with what happened and why the Hokage is missing. And Kawaki does actually say what happened. He says, "Yeah, Jigen came here and took him and stuff." And they're like, "Oh, really? Sure." So they just they just teleported away. It's really weird, and I don't have any evidence either way. But I'm following my gut, and I don't trust you. And he says that without Naruto present, he's placing Kawaki under house arrest, at least until they obtain proof that Kawaki is innocent, which, fair enough. Boruto objects to this, but Kawaki's just like, I mean, okay, it's better than going to jail.
Fair enough, my boy.
Kawaki looks over at the artificial hand, and then we cut away to Bearded Guy, whose name I've momentarily forgotten. I know he's important, but I've forgotten it, so oh well. He's part of Kara. He's got the beard.
I know. Yeah. I'm trying to remember it now, too. Schmeggy?
Sure, Schmeggy.
Schmeggy Johnson? Is there a Schmeggy in Kara?
So he's looking over the village and he's trying to figure out what has happened himself because he doesn't know how the fight between Jigen and Naruto went. But he's thinking like, okay, there's no way that Naruto beat Jigen. He's too strong. And even if Sasuke showed up, they still wouldn't have beaten him. But Jigen hasn't come back for Kawaki, so maybe it's because he can't. Maybe he has expended so much chakra that he had to go back to base to recharge. In which case, this could be a chance for me to take down Jigen. And so he goes back to base to go and at least see how things are right now. And sure enough, Jigen has returned to their base in order to recharge. And he's basically hooked up to like a giant battery. And they flat out say like, yeah, you nearly used up all of your chakra in that battle. And he admits that he kind of got carried away trying to take on Sasuke and Naruto and doing as much as he did. And this does also confirm the suspicions that Naruto and Sasuke had, that they're like, yeah, it's just not worth him having to kill us at this point. But Jigen is happy, despite the fact that he wasted so much chakra because of Kawaki's development, which they believe to be because he is in Boruto's presence. And Jigen theorizes that because Kawaki has progressed so much, Boruto's must be developing as well. And he says they'll likely both become powerful Otsutsuki. A gigantic divine tree shall grow, huge enough to devour all life on the planet. But he says that, everyone's wishes will be granted. Yeah, I'm gonna kill everyone, but you'll get what you want. It's cool.
Don't worry, you'll get to... The Subway will start putting 9th meatballs on subs. He's like, you goddamn right, Jigen. This shit's going Fubar.
The smoking glasses beardy guy, whose name is Amado, when Jigen says this about everyone getting what they want, he stares over at Delta, and Amado's like, I'm counting on it, Jigen. It's like, that's creepy. What the fuck are you imagining? We cut back to Naruto's house. Boruto still continues to argue with Shikamaru over the arrangement. Kawaki feels guilt over what has happened to Naruto. And he remembers the stuff that Naruto had told him and the assurance that he gave him and stuff like that. Meanwhile, of course, Jigen was a huge dick to him, saying, like, you're nothing, you're empty, you're a vessel, blah, blah, blah. And Kawaki starts to kind of like hyperventilate a little bit, and then he just asks aloud, why was the Hokage so kind to me? Why is he willing to look me straight in the eye? Why? And Sarada basically knows what he's talking about, because like, yeah, I mean, he looks at you as if you're family. And there have been times I wondered how much better my life might be if the Lord Seventh were my dad. I was jealous of Boruto and annoyed at his constant griping, his ignorance of being so blessed. But you see, to Lord Seventh, everyone in the village is family. That's who he is, and you just feel safe in his presence. It's nice to get a little bit of confirmation that Sarada still got those parental issues she's working through, that things weren't magically fixed after her miniseries. And just like, oh yeah, Dad's great. He's like, no, the Hokage is still always the one who's there for me and the one I consider to be a father figure. Because even after that, Dad just went on another fucking mission. Boruto continues to argue with Shikamaru until one of the men comes out and he's holding the vase that Kawaki has fixed. And he's like, it was displayed prominently on the Lord Seventh's desk. Could it be a ninja tool for curse jutsu? And Boruto just goes and snatches away from me. He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Why do you think so?
Are you stupid? But he's actually looks really happy that Kawaki actually went to do all the trouble of fixing it like he asked for. And Kawaki's like, it's still not completely fixed. There's a hole in it. And Boruto's like, see? Kawaki went to all this trouble of fixing it. Do you still think he's a spy? And I kind of want to feel like Shikamaru should have just said, I mean, if he wanted nobody to be suspicious of him, then yeah, he'd want to be on good terms with everyone. So I guess he would do that.
It's sort of like half the chapter is just Boruto being like, well, this minor thing proves he couldn't be a spy. And Shikamaru's like, I'm not really saying he's a spy. I'm just saying we have to be careful because we don't know right now. The Lord Seven's completely gone. I thought maybe being in this household, you'd kind of understand precautions, but just like it's not like we arrested him or anything like that. Like he's not in chains or anything like this. Like, I don't know why you really had to keep making a bigger deal of this with every passing second.
Also, I want to point out that Sarada went to all the trouble of like taking her shoes off before checking on Kawaki and everything. Here, Boruto sees that this guy has Himawari's vase, and he just zoom right in. No pause whatsoever, tracking mud everywhere.
He just kicks up dirt. He starts punching couches over. He's like, fuck you! Dad's not here!
I'm gonna break this microwave. But at that moment, Kawaki's just like, look, Boruto, you're not helping or anything. And all of a sudden, the artificial hand zooms to life, and he's like, I can sense Lord Seventh's chakra. And he attaches the arm back onto himself, and he's like, oh my god, it's functioning. That means that he's not dead. So maybe he's just he was just unconscious and knocked out for a little while. So they're like, yes, this is proof that he's alive. And in fact, he senses the Hokage through a chakra link. So he starts to activate karma and says to Boruto to work together with him. And together, they conjure up a little portal in the middle of the air. And so they're like, with this, you know, I'm connected to him, so I know where he is. So, but unfortunately, and he's like, you know, I understand why Jigen chose me. I'm like him. We're on the same wavelength. So I hate that, but that also means I've got the same abilities that he does. So he's able to use this to go where Naruto is. And so he turns to everyone and says, let's go rescue Lord Seventh. And Boruto's like, yeah! They start to step forward, and Shikamaru's like, nope! Snags all of them with his He's like, what the hell are you doing? One, you still haven't proved yourself to not be a spy. And two, you're not going anywhere. Calm down and think about what you're going to do. But Kawaki just extends his karma hand forward and sucks up the jutsu so that they can get out of it. He's like, come on, let's go. And Mitsuki grabs Boruto and Sarada, steps through the portal. Kawaki starts to follow after, and he says, hey, you just need proof, right? So I'll go get it for you. And they step through the portal, and they show up in the wasteland where the weird urn containing Naruto is. But there's another member of Kara waiting there for him. The big guy with the big mustache and beard.
The big guy!
I hate bullies. He just like talks in weird self-motivational stuff that he just stole from other self-motivational books.
That's what he does. He read The Secret. It changed his life.
So he's super smart now.
Yep.
I read one book every month.
The Secret over and over again.
I remember when they were trying to pump up Ryback, and so Cole would like, you know, talk about the weird like stuff that he would do, the amount that he would work out each day, the amount he would eat each day. And then one week it was like, right back to keep his mind hungry, will read one book a month. It's not a lot.
It's relatively manageable, especially when every month that book is a collection of Garfield comics. Just like me when I was a kid getting that Pizza Hut pan pizza for the book it deal or whatever it was. So you had to read a bunch of books over the summer. And I was like, if you just don't put Garfield at the front of it, you just put the actual collection number and title, no one really knows. They're like,
I mean,
she reads a lot of books that are fat puns.
I know that if you are reading I don't know, War and Peace length books each month, yeah, it sounds pretty impressive. But if you're reading, I don't know, just little novellas, then it's just okay.
I mean, you could read a science you could just read some short book in a week without really pressing yourself for it. So,
whatever. Anyway, gonna be doing a Ryback voice whenever this guy fights next time. So yeah, Boro, member of Kara.
Feed me more. Feed me Thor. Feed me Thor.
Gross. So that was the chapter this week. A couple of nice moments here and there. I thought it was all right. It was kind of weird to see things play out, and also Mitsuki's there too. He literally does one thing in this chapter, which is come on, guys, just kind of pushes two guys through the portal.
Yeah.
But I liked Sarada's little conversation with Kawaki. I like that Shikamaru brings logic into things and is I have to be cautious here as, the thinking guy. And I like that Kawaki was just well, there's a person out there who cares about me, and I'm going to be reckless as a result of that. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I think it was just a solid chapter. I kind of like Kawaki continuing to, I don't know, shirk the trends of what I expected. It'd be a much more infuriating chapter if he was the one that was what are you talking about? I've done all these things to prove my innocence, but he's the one who's kind of yeah, I get it. I understand. Yeah, I look, I'd be doing the same thing in your shoes, man. I totally get it,
That's exactly what he says, yeah.
And you're hey, I kind of appreciate that Kawaki's so understanding of the circumstances, so it makes him a lot easier to like.
Yeah. And there's Boruto being the idiot over there. See, he fixed the boss. You can't be suspicious of him. He super glued it back together.
A monster wouldn't fix a vase.
Maybe if it were a boss fixing monster, yes.
Well, he is a spy, Nick. And speaking of spies,
Spy Family. Hey,
we did it.
Worked out perfect. Extra Mission 2. So I'm not sure exactly what the logic is for some of these missions being extra missions. I guess because they're so separated from the ongoing thing that Lloyd is having to deal with his mission and the progress of the school and stuff like that. It does seem kind of odd that this is an extra mission, and the previous chapter, which was all about Anya playing dodgeball, was not. But whatever.
I guess the idea is that no character progression is happening here, or story progression. So, I guess last chapter is meant to be hey, Damien and Anya are slowly becoming less enemies and more friends and respecting each other. And this one's just I don't know, she got a hole in her butt.
Yor gets shot in the butt in this chapter. We see her at the beginning finishing up a hit. I like how she's just so casual about stuff, and she's yeah, took care of business. I'm going home. Oh, no, wait, I've got to pick up milk and eggs on the way. But one of the goons that she has seemingly killed is actually still alive, and she aims his pistol at her, and we find out pretty quickly that she was shot in the butt. So not a lethal wound in any way, but her butt hurts.
It's
all throughout this chapter.
It's worth noting, Nick. Jay Flugel says that extra missions are released in the physical Weekly Shonen Jump magazine and not on the online platform. Which also goes to explain why there's a quick recap throughout the chapter about who these characters are and what they can do and stuff like that.
The little the little character intro boxes. Yes. Yeah. Yor pulls some great faces throughout this chapter which I guess are I've been shot in the ass chapters. Faces rather. I did not know that there was an exact expression you could make to convey that you have been shot in the ass, but apparently, Yor demonstrates them in this chapter.
You know what? If I had been shot in the ass, that's what my face would look like. I completely agree with that. It seems like it'd be really unpleasant.
Anya, of course, knows about this because she can read Yor's mind, but Lloyd has no idea what's going on because he's just like, oh no, she's upset about something. I know that this is just a fake marriage, but I'm not making her happy. Maybe I've got to, actually be a better husband for her, so that, because otherwise my cover will be blown if I don't do that job. Meanwhile, Anya's not really reacting to this. She's just being like, oh, wow, Mama got shot and she's still okay. Cool. And Yora seems even more miserable in the morning. So Lloyd decides to go on a date with her, and Yora's really excited about this because, she also wants to have a much less suspicious family life. So she agrees to it. She says, I mustn't pass up an opportunity to learn. And Lloyd's like, what the fuck is she talking about?
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Anya wants to go too, and Lloyd immediately just like, it's a date. You're not coming. So instead, he leaves his information contact to take care of her. I forget his name, but they say it during this chapter. They go off on a date. They're going to get into a car. And he's like, this is going to be so perfect. I came up with 862 date ideas. But yours like, I can't sit down in the car. It'll hurt my ass. So she decides that they're going to walk instead. And Lloyd's like, damn it. That's 794 of my ideas out the window. Because we can't drive anywhere. Anya turns to her new babysitter and is just like, hey, let's go shadow them. And he's like, all right, that sounds fun. So they put on disguises, which are very conspicuous, and start to tail them. And Lloyd is immediately just like, what the fuck are those guys doing? He can spot them a mile away. But they go to a whole bunch of different date places. But, it's like Yor can't sit down at the cinema, at the club. And she refused to get a massage at the spa. She can't sit down when they go rowing out on a pond. So things are not going well. And both of them are pretty upset that they can't, that they can't have a good time. Finally, they end up going to a fancy restaurant to get some dinner. Yor is okay because she is able to sit only half on the chair. So presumably, oh no, she's not even sitting on the chair. Yeah, she's just hovering directly above the chair so that her butt wound doesn't get hurt. It seems as though the shadowing operation has come to an end because Anya and her babysitter are dressed casually, and also Anya's too young to get inside. But at that moment, Anya can read the mind of one of the waiters at the establishment, who was actually one of the militants that Yor took out before. He was the lone survivor of it, and he vowed that he was going to go straight. But he sees that this is a sign, since the same hired killer who killed all of his companions has now showed up at the restaurant. So he's like, I've got to get revenge. I've got to avenge the spirits of my fallen brothers. And Anya, of course, senses that her foster mother is in danger. And so there's a great imagination sequence that she has where she imagines the guy running up to attack her, and she's like, oh no. And then Yor kicks the guy, and she's like, oh yeah. And then Lloyd realizes who Yor is, and she's like, oh no.
It's even more so is like how exaggerated her fantasy gets, where it's them like, oh, well, like, you're a spy? Well, I can't do that. Our family's more. And then like a tiny text. Also, let's abandon Anya.
Let's just screw her over specifically.
Yeah, like she just as a child would, like, oh God, the worst case scenario.
So, she decides that they've got to protect Yor. And we see that the first thing that the waiter tries to do is just squeeze out a blowfish into a glass and act like it's a glass of wine. Seems kind of obvious, but Yor drinks it and it actually helps her because the toxins and the poison, I guess, numb her pain a little bit. And since she's a hitman, she's got a really high tolerance for poisons, so she doesn't suffer any of the ill effects. And also, the guy did a really bad job of, I guess, mixing the poison. So there you go. Anya sneaks through the air vents, spots a storeroom, and immediately goes down a vent into it because she is reading the mind of the waiter, who is planning on whipping up an improvised bomb, and he is reciting in his head exactly how to do it, but then he suddenly slips in a bunch of olive oil on the floor, and then picks up a jar, which happens to be the bomb that Anya has just made by following his instructions, and it explodes right in his face. But of course he's alive because it's a comedy.
Yeah.
And Anya comes out. She's wearing I don't even know where this came from. She's wearing a cat suit and sunglasses. She was wearing it in the air vent earlier, but she's wearing this now and pointing some sort of pistol at him. I think it's just a toy gun. And she's just like, listen up, Red Circus Man. Don't you ever go near that lady ever again. Got it? Stop doing bad guy stuff forever. Go home and make Catherine happy. And so the guy's like, oh my God, she even knows about the woman that I love. It's like she could see right through me. I've got to get out of here. I'm going to go live a normal life. Anya saves the day. And so the date went pretty well overall. So the night ends with Yor thanking Lloyd for the night. And she says that when I was young, I was always so busy looking after my brother that I never had much time for fun. So today really meant a lot to me, and I hope we can do it again sometime. Parentheses, when I'm not seriously injured. And the chapter ends on a joke of the poison has worn off the next day, so she's not in nearly as good a mood anymore. But it was a fun little chapter. I do actually really hope that this running in the proper magazine encourages more people to go check out Spy Family, because it's a really fun series.
Absolutely. It's good times.
Didn't really go exactly the way I imagined it would, considering this was, the chapter where Lloyd and Yor go on a date, because it was an Anya chapter, but whatever.
It's also oddly refreshing that it's an entire chapter about Yor's butt, and it's not weird or creepy at the slightest. In my mind, I was like,
not a single fan servicey shot. No,
nothing like that. All right, good times. Let's talk about Eden Zero, Nick, because we have 2 chapters to talk about.
2 chapters.
So we're gonna go through this real quick. So starting with chapter 65, the swordswoman incapacitated.
But don't you mean Odin Zero?
Verily, Nick, drink with me in celebration of the cause. Clink. Finally, you, Nick, shall be the Beta Ray Bill to my Thor. Which
what
is to say, honor. You will be a horse-faced man who cameos on the side of a building because you're just too weird for our universe. No one's
one day.
I actually didn't realize there were 2 chapters of this at first. And I realized because Ninja X3i mentioned something to me about it, and I was like, oh.
Shit.
Which is not shocking, because when you go to the next chapter, you're like, I guess this chapter did technically happen. This one's about Hamor, and she's like, oh, there's a big battle going on. I guess I better participate. But she's too weak because she's been crying and being sad a lot. So she tries to get up. And then Mask Guy shows up, and he's like, ha, those whip effects are starting to finally take in. So I guess the idea is that they're really, 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 really slow-acting poisons. Or
I was under the impression that Homura was crouching in front of Valkyrie for at least an hour. So
yeah, my mind's like, oh, she's just sore. Or should I say Thor? She's just sore from everything. But, I mean, maybe it's him just being really happy with himself and trying to take credit for it. But
oh, yeah, this is by slow-acting drugs, yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's the case, whatever. So he's like, boom, hey, it's me. "Oh, are you Kurenai's daughter? Yeah, you know what? I think I could see a resemblance." And then he starts taunting over Valkyrie's body, talking about how she was really, basically just being a weird creep to her, being like, "Oh yeah, she was a fine woman. I really wanted to break her. She was special." And it eventually ends with him breaking her head straight off the corpse. And Tamora
I was hoping one that this would happen because it would have actually been really striking. But I was hoping that it would be more of a big deal that he just rips her head off. Like I wanted like a full page spread of this moment to really hammer home what an awful act this is. And yeah, I know the entire page is dedicated to the moment of it because it's showing Homura's reaction, his reaction, stuff like that. But I feel as though it would have been more effective just to show like so.
Yeah, there you could have been more graphic with it to really like hammer home the horror of it. But we see the expression that Homura has, and obviously she's very upset. And she's trying to get up, but Mask Guy's like, "You can't move. You're fucking all paralyzed out again." So Homura summons a shit ton of swords using, quote, her ultimate secret technique, Odin Strike. That's not. Hold on. I need to contact my family. We need to get a cease and desist on Eden Zero just using my father's name like that. How dare thee? She fires all the swords, but it doesn't work because he whips some away, basically. And he's like, "I guess they're a real force to be reckoned with. But I'll just tie you up because that's how you beat Ether.
Yay, bondage!"
Yeah. We're gonna see more of it going forward, I presume. So he ties her up real quick, and all the swords disappear, and he's taunting her because it's like, "Ha, that's what you get. All your swords are gone. You can't make new ones. I'm going to really enjoy breaking you. It's going to be great." And she's like, "How dare you? A monster like you deserves the judgment of my mentor's sword." And he's like, "Huh?" And he looks over and Valkyrie's sword's gone. And he realizes that the reason she made all those swords was to knock it into the air. And he's like, "But where did it go?" And then it fucking falls from the sky and just fucking murders him. This dude is dead.
Pretty sure he's actually dead.
He should be, because holy shit, does it look brutal. It gets the 2-page spread that you were probably looking for before, and it's like silhouetted, so you just see the blade piercing through him and like an enormous thing of blood shooting out. It is pretty brutal. So he's done. Valkyrie apologizes because she's like, "I needed your help one last time, Valkyrie." And then Rebecca and Wise, that's their names. They're very important characters. They show up and free her, and basically she's like, "You know what? I have all of you to thank because I had all my friends and I was able to stand and move on. And now I continue to move on because I have all of you." Ironic in a chapter in which she does not stand whatsoever.
It's kind of disappointing, honestly, that she's like, "I'm fine now."
There was no real catharsis in this chapter or anything. Like, there was no revelation or anything along those lines. As I mentioned, I went straight to chapter 66 and didn't realize this chapter took place because the entirety of Mask Guy showing up, Mask Guy taunting her, Homura revealing her secret attack, Homura using her secret attack to use like a special weapon to actually kill the guy, killing him, and then all of her friends showing up and her resolution to move on happens all within the span of a single chapter, which isn't necessarily a problem. It keeps things concise, but sort of a large part of this arc has been like a lot of stuff not feeling like it has the right kind of build up to how cool it should have been. Which unfortunately continues to be the case in chapter 66, Gravity's Gonna Crush You, where Shiki is fighting against Madame Kurenai in her Super Dragoon bot. And I think it's actually the Megas XLR because she's like, "I have to kill you. I'll hit this full power button switch, like murder everyone button." And it starts shooting lasers and all this sort of stuff. And Shiki's like, "Hey, what are you trying to do? I'm dodging all of it." She's like, "I just needed to lock onto you. Now I'm going to fire the Queen Nova." And it's a gigantic missile. So Shiki's like, "Well, I'll just lure it into a wall and like make a last second dodge." But that doesn't work. It I guess will only explode if it hits him, but not like super specifically, as we'll find out in a moment. So it keeps following him, and he's like, "Oh, so it won't stop till it hits its target? Would have bet if I'm right here." And he's right on top of the cockpit of the Dragoon bot, and Madame Kurnai's like, "Oh, but if you're trying to dodge that, and let the missile hit me, just realize it won't work because the weapons that it has can't damage its armor." And Shiki's like, "Yeah, but my fist did. I'm not dodging it." So he just holds an arm out, and he just grabs the missile. The missile doesn't explode. And then he puts gravity on it. So I guess Madame Kurnai had just enough money to make sure her entire mech couldn't be manipulated by gravity, but did not put that same money into making sure the missile couldn't be manipulated by it.
Of course.
And then he transfers the kinetic energy of the missile into gravity. I'm not sure.
Not how that works, but go ahead.
I remember reading it and being like, I guess if Gambit can turn kinetic energy into poison gas or whatever, then sure, whatever. He's like, it's just, it just goes straight through. It's energy from here into boom. So he does a really strong punch and he breaks the whole robot. So Madame Kurnai has been defeated. We cut back to Labor District and everybody's really celebrating because all of the monsters shut down.
She does say at one point as Shiki is standing over her, she asks, "Are you really human?" So
yeah,
just wanted to note that.
Yeah.
It could very well just be a throwaway line, but I just wanted to make a note of that.
I was going to say, it feels like a Shiki's so cool line, but who knows. Also, he lost his shirt in all of this, so
yeah,
it's really hard to not be like, hey, Gray showed up in this series. Nino shut down all the Punisher bots. He does
Good for him. He's a good guy.
He does his stupid fucking anime will save the universe line for... Please, for the love of God, the last time. I've never, not even Urkel had to hammer home his different, fucking trademark catchphrases as much as this dude. Once per chapter, he's got to be like, yeah, but anime will save the universe. All the characters are really, really happy. Homura apologizes for not entering into the fight sooner, but it doesn't really matter. And then Shiki drops Lady Kurnai off at her feet for a confrontation between them.
Yes.
And that's the chapter.
Yep.
There's not a lot to this. This is a significant chapter in that the main villain's been defeated. There's a big confrontation that's going to happen. That's the emotional core of this entire arc. But this chapter didn't feel particularly special or memorable. I felt like there could have been a lot more. Did. Yeah, I feel like there could have been a lot more placed in just the general idea of, hey, this big battle's taking place in a labor district, the destitute quarters of basically everyone on the planet, these people who have suffered. There's a bunch of wanton random destruction happening about it, but no one really seems to mind it. There's not any kind of significant moment where everyone in the entire country feels this immense sense of relief when she's defeated. I just think of the way One Piece would do this kind of chapter, which probably isn't a fair comparison, but it's the way I kind of see it in my mind. And I'm like, I feel like more time would be spent just basking in the defeat of an oppressive force like this than just kind of 3 pages worth of everyone being like, hey, we're good now. So maybe we'll get it more, but it just didn't feel very big.
Yeah, maybe this whole confrontation between Homura and her mother will have some sort of payoff, but it's really weird that we've kind of gotten, I don't know, there was all this buildup over stuff involving Homura and the big cathartic moment, like you said, was not cathartic. Mm. So hopefully the real meat of that is going to be in this, confrontation, whatever with Kurenai. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about Beast Children, chapter 21, Because I Have Company. Shishigai is doing a good job out there, running around, tackling people. Yay. And his friend is watching and he's cheering him on. And the captain starts explaining the rules to him. And he's like, "Why are you suddenly explaining all this to me?" He's like, "Oh, you came out here for this, right?" He's like, "Well, no, I was forced to come here by your fanatical manager." And the captain's like, "That's not the only reason why you came here. You feel like something's missing in your life, don't you? And you're hoping you'll find that something here." And he's like, "No. I mean, like, I quit soccer and I'm working part-time at grandma's place and I'm just working on my video game backlog." "You're wrong. I'm happy. I thought I was, but suddenly I'm not so sure." Basically, he wants to have companionship and play team sports for
Wait a minute. Hold on. So you're suggesting that the cold loner actually just wanted friends all along? Interesting. I don't know. Have they done that before?
No. I'm sure that if Beast Children had, were not on its last legs, especially now that Japan has been knocked out of the Rugby World Cup, that this would have probably been a bigger plot point in the series, the time that he eventually joins the rugby team and teams up together with Shishigai and stuff. But whatever. That's the only thing that I thought was really especially significant about this chapter. There is a really weird throwaway moment where Shishigai helps Yukito to his feet, and Yukito's like, "I must admit, he's my rival." That's it. Yay, payoff to that character relationship. All right, Samurai 8, Chapter 23. What good will that do you? So Hachimaru used the super white blade thing to cut through other new samurai's sword. He admits defeat, and then the guy's like, "The shine of the katana has receded, so the white blade lasted only a moment." They're like, "Wait, he's not completely defeated yet because he's hasn't been cut or anything." And the new samurai guy is like, "I am resigning from the battle. Bye." He says that he was not after the prize money.
Have his name?
I think I got to say it last time, but I don't remember.
Okay, because I'm trying to this character feels like he was meant to be a very significant character in this series. But while we're in this kind of chaos mode of whether or not this series is continuing or not, he's just kind of shown up as I'm the cool character.
I would have been an important rival. So he leaves. As he leaves, the princess starts explaining to Hachimaru and Anne why a princess's prayer is important, blah, 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 blah. And she says, "A princess's prayer makes a samurai stronger. That's why a princess is targeted in battle, so you must be careful of that." And Hachimaru's like, "What happens to a samurai who loses his princess?" And he loses his innate strength. It is like losing half of yourself. You should ask your master about that. And Hachimaru is like, "All right, there's all this talk of the princess. Does he not have a princess anymore?" And they're like, "When you're targeted for attack, your princess will be exposed. Don't let your princess die. Don't let your princess die. This is how samurai work. Don't let your princess die."
It feels like, although this has sort of always been the premise, they're really hammering this home now when it's I feel like instead of explaining 70 fucking different pieces of lore, you could have just created that premise of hey, we have to work in combos, but you have to kind of protect someone else at the same time, and just kind of reinforce that as the core idea of the combat in this series. But hey, 20 chapters in, still good.
Yeah. He asks Hachimaru if he has a purpose for being a samurai, a calling. And of course Hachimaru does. He made the vow in his father's grave and everything like that. And the guy says, when he gives up on his calling and his spirit is broken, a samurai loses his heroism and dies. There can be no heroism without demonstrating your calling. If you can no longer keep safe those you wish to protect, you might as well be dead. My word bubbles are coming out of Hachimaru's mouth right now. I don't know why. It's really weird paneling. Hachimaru thanks him as he flies off. He turns to Anne and apologizes, and he promises to do better. But Anne's like, "Hey, you don't have to keep apologizing. Nobody's perfect. Besides, remember what I said. This is why you have me." Aw, aren't they sweet? And over on the side, weird thief guy is like, "Ooh, look who's a cute couple all of a sudden," and I do like that Ryu's like, they're just like us. No, 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 they're not. No, 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 not gay here. No, no. Hachimaro asks why Anne's being so nice to him, and Anne is like, I can't tell you that. But mentally, she's thinking because Hachimaro is the person who connects her to her brother. Okay. Then we get... There's so much in this chapter. There are the next 300 chapters that were supposed to happen worth of story happening in this one chapter. So, Hayataro births a mini Hayataro to look after Anne.
It's just how they say. You could just do that, I guess.
Dharma remembers, I guess who is his master, who appears to be a female samurai who, I don't know, is basically like his Yoruichi, is what it makes me think of. This kind of, smart talking, badass, female instructor kind of character. And she's, imparting words of wisdom to Dharma, and Dharma's like, I look like adult Naruto to match how Hachimaru is kid Naruto, and I'm making the same mistakes that Hachimaru does in terms of my impatience and such and so on.
Yeah, but he has a gun.
He does have a gun.
He has a gun and a sword.
And a sword that seems to have a finger grip in it for some reason.
So you can hold it with just a finger. You can use the rest of your fingers on your phone, but you can still be holding onto the sword at the same time.
By the way, deep lore here. Dharma says, it seems that Hachimaru studied hard with that training game I created. Then it was worth the trouble to make it. He was the #1 ranked player in the game, so his ability to anticipate the opponent is elite. All he needs is more experience. And we get a little bit more stuff with the new samurai. Who cares?
They say
that Hachimaru is a true key. No, I need to finish this point.
Okay.
New Samurai says, I don't know who he is, but he's likely seen more combat than I have. And we get a flash of current Hachimaru to old Hachimaru hooked up to the VR game. And as New Samurai says, that was a battle-tested man. And we've had it implied a couple of times in the past, but this time it is outright stated, and stated very bluntly, that because Hachimaru was super good at the video game, he knows how to fight because he can strategize as you would in a video game. And we see this put into play in a random no-name trident-wielding samurai who Hachimaru quickly does like a dash around slash, and he and the others take out all the remainders of their opponents. And Hachimaru says that if he had been fighting Nanashi instead of this guy, Nanashi would have avoided his attack. What I've learned through these battles is that real fighting is the same as a game.
So there is a level to which you could say somebody is experienced in fighting games, and that helps, because there is a lot of intelligence that goes into playing video games, like fighting games, and being good at them on a super competitive level. A lot of it involves not just having your own reaction speed, but also being able to anticipate what people are going to do and counter it. That's something that you could say, hey, he has this skill, and it applies to real life, and it helps him. It's weird to be like, it gave him all these, it makes him the best samurai.
That was where it was going. I thought that was where it was going, yes. Was just, there are certain things that his video game training, certain skills that his video game training gives him that you could build his fighting style around, yeah.
The line that I missed is fucking Daruma just casually dropping, I made the game. I made the game for him so that he could train. You're like, wait, what?
So for those of you 80s sci-fi fans out there, yes, Hachimaru is in fact the last Starfighter. The video game was made as a training program.
I know, that's such a weird piece of lore that, like, Daruma stuck in his cat body was busy being like, all right, it's crunch time. Better get some programs out. Do I want microtransactions or not? No, that'll scare them away. But I do need skins. Kids only play games with skins in them.
What if I make a loot box?
That, like, fucking Daruma was just like, I need For Honor, but better. I need to make a game everyone will play. And then, like, in the alternate universe where he's like reading a newspaper, it's like, nobody likes stupid fighting samurai game. And he's just like, I failed.
Damn it, my plan to find the key.
I failed the universe.
He goes out into the office. You're all fired. They're like, why do we work for a blind cat guy who can't actually program anything?
They're like, it's weird. He keeps saying his end goal is to save the universe, but he's just making.
We keep showing him.
It's just another battle royale game.
We keep showing him the profit margins, and he just like don't care.
No time. Put some microtransactions
Make it more. Make it more combat sim realistic.
I need the person who plays this to become the best samurai in the universe. And like, well, sir, shouldn't you just train that individual to do so? No, the video game will teach him all the skills he needs.
So there you go. There's a nomination for stupidest moment of the year.
Like, it wouldn't work if we just had him fight regularly, because he could get killed in a training exercise. Like, well, technically, sir, the entire combat system of this universe is basically a video game, so you could have him fight the strongest dude in the universe over and over again. It wouldn't kill him.
Dharma turns and he points his claw. He's like, get out. They're like, sir, you're talking to a potted plant.
He's facing the wall. He's like,
you get out too.
You say that to me one more time and I'll cut your goddamn throat out.
Sir, that's chalkboard.
I know what it is. He steps straight out an open window.
Fuck all this. I'll be in my office. Ah!
Oh, good times. Anyway,
the end point of this stupid fucking chapter is that Hachimaru and Ryu and Dharma have defeated all the other samurai in the entire tournament in a really fast montage. They had like one named opponent whose name I don't remember in this entire tournament arc, which lasted 4 chapters. And so now Dharma is turning to Ryu, is like, let's continue our training. And yeah, that's it. They're going to have their rematch now. Hooray. That's Samurai 8. All right, moving on.
I feel bad because I am starting to like Samurai 8 because it's starting to make me actually kind of care about the characters a little bit, but it just reeks of so much like, oh, we're just everything before it ends.
It's one of those things where, you know, like there's world building and lore and stuff, and yes, those are important, but you have to remember that you don't need to dump all of it on the audience at once, because if you do, it gets really boring and clumsy and stupid. So the character development stuff we've gotten, hey, it's good. We needed more of it throughout this entire run, though, in order to help balance out how stupid all the lore dump is. All right. Mission Yozakura Family. Mission 9, Investigation. We open this chapter with a mysterious, tall, shaggy-looking man with a hammer. Okay, you don't care. You don't care about that. All right.
Oh. What are you talking about?
Never mind. All right.
This is a hammer, Nick. This is the mighty Stormbreaker. It's an axe. Oh. Yeah. Well, I guess this end could be a hammer. Could hammer had some good nails like that. Yeah. That's what the sound of Uru from The Last Dying Star sounds like. Forged to the space station by a giant Peter Dinklage.
It's very important you give the entire exposition every time. Home Improvement Thor just go.
I only wish it squeaked.
That is the sound.
That is the sound that the mighty Stormbreaker makes as it rips enemies in twain. I remember as the great Mad Titan Thanos was preparing to undo the universe. I came down with Stormhammer and I said, "I'll kill you!" And then it spun in the air and landed in his chest. And then he snapped his fingers and undid everything anyway.
You imagine that moment happened and Thor's like, "Ah, I got him!" And he's like, that's the sound it makes? Oh, no, he's snapping!
He had a moment to cut his head off and he was just thinking, like, oh, my hammer doesn't make a stupid sound. Oh, I knew it! Oh, damn it! Snap!
They go and confront him on his new planet, so that I won't miss this time. Anyway. They're watching it back later because alternate timeline. Thanos is like, ah! And then, well, that's the sound it made when I died.
He's like,
all right.
Didn't expect it to make that sound. Is this some kind of like comic relief universe? Is this the one with Peter Porker? Like, no. Although Howard the Duck is a character in it. He shows up in the final battle.
All right. Anyway, the guy with the hammer is just beating up a bunch of thugs in an alleyway. And they'll continue this conversation at the station. And then he looks at his phone and sees an image of Tayo on there. This chapter opens up, aside from that, at Tayo and Mutsumi's school. They are recovering from the kidnapping incident. Mutsumi is looking fine, but Tayo is not doing so well. He is recovering from all the stuff that occurred in the events that have happened. His mind and body both need to recover. And then the door opens up, and this scruffy-looking guy in a trench coat, named Otokeyama from the Koizumi police force is here to see Tayo. And so he asks him to go down to this police station with him. And so he does. And so they go into this interrogation room. Otokeyama, I need a nickname for this guy. That's going to trip me up. Has a laptop. There's a big bottle of water sitting on the table with a couple of glasses. And they are surrounded by trash bags. And so Hotokeyama turns the laptop around, shows an image of Tayo punching Hanao in the face. He's like, yeah, I got this video off the dark web. That's obviously you. You're getting arrested. But I have some questions for you before I take you into custody. And he just lists off a whole bunch of stuff that Tayo has done in the manga up to this point, including the stuff that has happened in the school building. And although he does say, like, stuff like hacking traffic signals, destroying a truck, breaking a bridge. What were you trying to do? And Tayo's just like, I mean, some of that wasn't me, but but of course, Hotokeyama's like, there's something odd about this. What was his name?
Did you say, hey, Lokiyama? My brother Loki. Loki, what are you doing in this series? Nick, you should be Loki.
No.
Stormbreaker, Nick, was forged out of the last two.
That's your argument?
That's all I've got, really. They killed everyone else.
You gotta give a big rousing speech to everyone's like, listen, everyone, I know that we are outnumbered. Our forces are weak and tired from many battles. We've been forced to our limits, and our reinforcements are not coming. If we do not do this, however, then we will not see the light of day. I know that things may seem hopeless now, but Stormbreaker was forged
by the last two.
The heart of a dying star. In a space station.
With a giant Peter glitch. No, to order! Like, I just interrupt other good speeches that are happening. Like, they may take our spirit, but
the day may come! When the car of wolves and the age of man falls, what is that? Hold on there, Aragorn. I think you're losing them. So I'll take
good Aragorn, you're great for a good haircut, but you're terrible at speeches. Elves! My axe
Actually,
was forged.
I can't tell the difference.
Don't care. Don't care. It was forged from the last room of a dying star. In the space, all these words that make no sense to them, even the normal ones.
Who's Peter Dinklage?
Oh, you ever watch Game of Thrones?
All right. Tokuyama wants to know if Taiyo's had an accomplice for this stuff, because there's clearly no way that a high schooler could have put off all this stuff alone. Taiyo spots something glinting in the wall beside Tokuyama's head, and Tokuyama's like, maybe you're involved with some sort of mysterious underground organization. You know, if you tell me about them, your sentence could be lessened. And Taiyo starts to deny that there's anyone assisting him. So he's like, I don't know anything about that. But Tokuyama is meanwhile pouring some water into a glass. He's like, hey, no need to make a rash decision right at this moment. You know, this information might get you acquitted. Why don't you just give it some thought while you drink some water? And he says this while very obviously pouring something into the glass of water. And Taiyo's like, remembers something that Kyoichiro had told him. He's like, is that truth serum? And Tokuyama was like, no, it's minerals. It's look, just drink it.
Just fucking splashed it into his mouth.
Fortunately, Taiyo came prepared with a water catcher, a little water balloon. You can just keep it in your throat, and it'll catch anything that could poison you or stuff like that. So Taiyo starts to say, like, I don't know. And Tokuyama gets his hammer out and smashes the table. He's like, all right. There are lots of evil people in the world who are beyond the reach of the law. And it's my duty to bring the hammer down on them. I see what you did there. Gotcha. But all this noise has caused one of Tokuyama's garbage bags to rouse. Turns out he's a drug dealer. The drug dealer starts bleeding through the garbage bag. And he's like, yeah, I punched that guy. And so he grabs Taiyo by the throat and says, there's no need to abide by the law for those who break it themselves. I will inflict on you the pain and suffering that you inflicted on others. If you don't talk, I'll pay a visit to your family at school. So Taiyo thinks about Mutsumi in this moment, but then he has a revelation. He's like, wait a minute. The light in the wall, all my information, and Mutsumi too. And so he comes to a decision. He grabs Tokuyama by the arm that's grabbing him by the throat and says, I'd never tell you anything. And Tokuyama's like, I look forward to seeing how many strikes it'll take to cloud the look in your eyes. And he swings with his hammer. Taiyo manages to jerk his arm down and get himself out of the way. And so instead, Tokuyama smashes through the wall with his hammer, revealing that Kyoichiro was behind the wall, listening in using his wires with a cup to his ear, and says like, you almost got my score dirty, my suit dirty. Tokuyama is like, reveals that they've been working together. This was a test placed by Kyoichiro. Kyoichiro reveals that this is Detective Seiji Tokuyama. I'm just going to call him Seiji from now on because that's way easier to remember. Seiji says that he's kind of police that helps to cover up stuff about the Yozakura family. And so they're old friends and they work together on stuff, although Seiji doesn't appear to like Kyoichiro incredibly much because he's a weirdo like that. And they used all this stuff to test Taiyo to see if he could keep secrets. And Seiji actually deliberately contradicted himself and he is really happy because instead of fighting back, he actually focused on cracking the ruse. So he actually cracks a little smile and says that he looks forward to working together with Taiyo in the future. And that's about it. There's a lot where each of them had bet on different things, and so they bet the same amount of money, and they just kind of trade bills. Where Seiji had bet 10,000 yen that Taiyo would spill the beans, and Kyoichiro had bet 10,000 yen that Taiyo would die. And that's it. It's a cool little chapter. I really like this way of introducing this character. It's a very solid introduction for him. So.
All right, let's move on to We Never Learned. Question 132. On the dusky riverbank, she finally runs to the pizza bet. So we start this chapter with Aruka, and she is walking the dog. And she is walking by. She passes by Uega, and he's busy being hurt with his leg, but he's still fucking doing his studying because he's a good guy. But it's the dog that, found him and was ultimately the cause of his accident, but also saved his life then too by helping people find out.
They're like, you really helped us on exam day. And they say like, you really helped us out on exam day. I'm just thinking like, no, he didn't. He made up for his own causing the problem.
So it looks like Aruka's taking care of him right now. So it's very nice. And she's like, hey, I hope we find his family, especially since I'm going to be going overseas soon. So the two of them basically are hanging out, and she's practicing all of her different English to Japanese. And she's like, yeah, I'm getting pretty good. And Uega's like, yeah, I guess you really are. And he knows, like, if you keep this up, you'll be going overseas. Kind of referencing the fact that the better Uega is at helping her get better at English, the more concrete it is that she's going to be leaving his life. So it's a little bit of a tinge of sadness there. Kind of distracts him. She spaces out, and she like has to wake him up and just be like, hey, we just have to make sure, you're speaking solid. You got an English interview. You got to stay sharp and everything like that. And they look over because they're staying on a bridge, and they notice that the dog has escaped its leash and is hanging out on a boat that just passed by, that just rode by. So they panic, go find another set of boats, immediately start rowing. Uega's the one rowing, and Aruka's like, let me help, and falls breast first into him, as you do. Apologizes, says, hey, let me help row, which on one hand, I'm like, this makes the most sense. She's an actual athlete. But at the same time, we know Uega's cut. We know he's shredded. So, maybe he's got the muscles too. Or maybe he's just like all show muscles. And if you ask him to do anything strenuous, he's like he just falls apart. So they both think about how it's a pretty awkward situation that they're in right now, because they're kind of like nestled up against one another. But they get close enough.
Yeah, and they're rushing back and forth against each other too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they get close enough, and they realize that it's the two foreigners from like fucking 80 chapters ago.
Pretty much, yes.
The people in there are like, hey, it's that good captain again there, Hans. Like, leave him alone, Damien. We're interrupting their date. They're like, yes, we don't want to interrupt them. Let's go. So they start actually like really fucking hustling Uegas to be like, no, wait. He's trying to speak in English. It's not doing too much. But then Aruka fucking turns on the turbo mode and just starts paddling fast enough that they just shoot straight past them. And I
do like the joke because Yuiga's like, what were they saying? And Aruka understood it perfectly. So she gets a boost from being like, they think we're a couple, and just
So they eventually dock, and they're like, a dog? And Uega is trying to say like, hey, yeah, please give us back our dog. And they're like, we don't have a dog. Do you have a dog? No, we have no dog. And Uega starts to worry. He's like, oh no, did the dog fall? But then Aruka steps in, and she's like, no, our dog is this big. He's got shaggy eyebrows and brown and white fur. He's got a funny face. His breath smells kind of... She just goes into a very descriptive description about this dog. And the foreigner's like, yeah, your English is very good, yeah. So the handsome man over there is your friend? And they both point over, and there is a bunch of the different like lost dog posters, and we see the dog as has run up to a small child and is like, oh hey, it's my family, I found it again. And I think that's supposed to be the kid who constantly comments.
No, because the kid who constantly comments on stuff is a boy. This is a girl with little puff balls on her
head. But they specified that they noticed this person from before. So I'm not really sure. I don't know.
I don't.
Anyway, they found that the dog finds its fucking owner again and is very happy about it. And the core of the chapter is just the fact that Yuiga's like, hey, your English is getting a lot better. They go out rowing again. Iruka's really happy about how good her English has gotten. And he says, or she says rather, I'm glad, but I'm also a little bit sad. And Yuiga agrees. It is a little sad. And for some reason, I said that with two meanings in my heart.
A nice little chapter. I like chapters that focus on, things developing instead of doing jokey stuff where we never learn. And although there was quite a bit of jokiness in this chapter, it was really nice to see Iruka. Hey, she's actually gotten really good. Her hard work has paid off. And also, it seems as though this could just be the part of me that's like, oh, I just really want Iruka to
be the girl.
Please, because I like her the most as a romantic partner for him. It seems as though he's starting to realize more the way that he feels about her. And I don't know. Obviously, it's a romantic comedy harem series, so it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But it's nice to have you start to gain some more awareness of like, all right, these are girls that I might be romantically interested in. So.
Yep.
Dr. Stone, Z equals 126, three-dimensional strategy.
It's time to get Stormbreaker forged out of the last room of a dying star.
Enough. To get through this chapter very quickly, a bunch of people go out in cloaks to go and enact their plan to swipe the spear. The big guy in the Kingdom Petrification mistakes him for Mose wearing the hood, but immediately Kindra just fights him off. He's like, with this golden spear shining like the sun itself, I will protect us. And he smashes the Anubis head's nose off of the guy. So now it's almost completely devoid of any dog features because it's missing ears and nose. Things are going pretty well. At the start, Ukyo shoots an arrow. Yay. Some of the other guys in the group swing some mirrors around so it looks like they're casting sorcery. And then Mose gestures over to where Yuzuriha and Suika and Amaryllis are all in cloaks, and he's like, hey, make it. And so they all go after him, and they're just kind of like, eh. And he makes it look like they've knocked him away.
He's it's like a fucking Shawn Michaels Hulk Hogan selling match.
So he says to Kiryu-sama that they need to use the weapon. So Kiryu-sama says to everyone, oh, the master's about to use his power. So everyone close your eyes. They all do. And Ryusu's like, all right, yes, toss it up right over here. And Mose is thinking to himself, I'm just going to keep right outside the Flash's range, but just close enough to reach the invaders in a single bound. Because you invaders are no fools. You're hoping to stop me with your sorcery. You already showed me how it works in the cave, and it'll only take a single moment and one finger to manipulate that thing with your magic spells. But knowing that, I'll just strike quickly, remove your heads from your bodies as you work your spells. I win. But we get a moment of insight from something that Kiryu-sama had learned earlier, something Ibara told her about before they all set off to confront with this army. And we see, not the conversation that happens, we just see a little, him muttering something. We don't see the words. But meanwhile, back in the village, there is a woman who observes that Ibara is wearing an earring. And we see that Ibara had noticed that suddenly Mose had started wearing an earring, and he recognizes the same earring that Kohaku was wearing. And so now he's wearing Kohaku's transponder radio earring thing. Dun, dun, dun! And he says, what makes this old man the strongest isn't just having an army, but remaining cautious in spite of that. The old man wins. Kiryu-sama throws the weapon. It arcs high up into the air. Senku calls out to activate the drone. Chrome says, we're going to win, as Ryusui activates the controls on the drone. So what's going to happen? We've got these three different people, all who seem to have different ideas of what's going on. Ibarra has a lot more information than everyone was expecting. I love the twist that he pops up using the same earring that Kohaku had on earlier. So how much of the plans has he been hearing about? So cool stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We're in some real back and forth, and this is, I think, where Inagaki's strength as a writer really kind of shines through when he creates like a dramatic situation like this, where, you know, we've been following the hero's plan for so long. It seemed like it was absolutely unbeatable. In the last second, it's like, oh, wait, he's been listening to the plan the entire time now. So how do you react to that? Very exciting. All right. Let's move on to Seven Deadly Sins, Chapter 329, Zeldris versus the Demon Lord. So Zeldris is still inside the dreamscape. The Demon Lord's trying to make him hate Melodius. So he's bringing up all these illusions of when Zeldris was younger, Melodius was just like, oh, fuck off. You're lured. I don't like you. You're not my little brother. I don't really think of you that way. And
Zeldris, I like the faces that fake Meliodas pulls, because they're just the most straightforward, like, I'm bad.
Yeah. And Zeldris is just like, fuck you with this weak shit. I'm not into your melodrama. And if you're going to do it, at least make a good melodrama.
It's a good line.
Yeah. He's just like, hey, you know what? How about you'll never understand how it feels for a parent to have to kill a beloved son with his own hands.
Oh, first world problems.
And Zeldris is like, you don't fucking like me. I never loved you at all either. If you're going to resort to this, then, you're really fucking fallen, Dad. So he just kind of taunts him the whole way through, talks about how, hey, you know what? I probably wouldn't be strong enough to beat you. In the real world, I'm not strong as you or Melodius, but then here in the mindscape, I have a chance, and I also have someone who I could never give up. And when you have the power of love, that conquers everything. You, who's never known love in your life, would never understand, monster.
The power of love is a mysterious thing.
Mm-hmm. But I believe in a thing called love.
Just listen to the rhythm of his heart.
I believe in a thing called love! I couldn't remember the next line, so I just wanted to hit the falsetto. The Demon Lord's pretty sad. He's like, hey, Melodius suffered a crushing defeat, and even though you're the Demon Lord, you're losing to him again. You can see like his mask is cracked. He's looking in some pretty rough shape. And he's like, how dare you suggest the Demon Lord could lose twice? And he sings his big sword. But we see that the fight going on outside is not going too well in his favor either. And Zeldris just says, hey, it's because I trust my big brother. So, eat shit, nerd. He's Ominous Nebula and just fucking wrecks him. And we see a big explosion happen in the real world. A bunch of blood shoots out of the Demon Lord's mouth. And then the last page is the Demon Lord, who looks significantly less swole than he did a moment ago, as all of the different commandments are kind of erupting out of him in this giant kind of pustule darkness thing.
We also see that Gelda has somehow been thrown out of Zeldris as well, and she's calling out for him. Mm-hmm. So, what's going to happen? All right. The Promised Neverland, Chapter 155, Resurrection. So, this is kind of gross. We see two different things happen. The first scene is the group outside dealing with the demons who are rampaging and have been poisoned and stuff like that. Aishi is sniping some of them. Also, Dawn and Gilda are trying to help, and they're like, how do we, stop them without killing them? And they're like, Aishi's doing a really good job of it, but they're trying. And also, they're regenerating really quickly, so Gilda thinks to herself that yes, the evil blood can return to generate demons back to their humanoid form, so maybe it could nullify the poison too. But they're like, but how do we make them drink the blood? And so Sonju's just like, just cuts his own arm off, just throws it in one of their mouths. He's like, this is the fast way to find out. And it eats it, and it falls down, and it's like, all right, that worked. So Sonju grows his arm back. Mujika approaches some of the random demons and is like, here, drink some of this. It will return everyone to normal. You will never degenerate again. And some of the demon children start doing so. Hooray! We cut back to where Norman and everyone are. The queen, of course, had lurched back up despite the top half of her head being ripped off and her core being destroyed. And she's descending on Norman, but Cisco gets in the way. How could it possibly have happened? The thing that we predicted last week. He got pushed out of the way. Cisco gets his leg really messed up. I think that it's almost entirely severed, but it's kind of hard to tell because of the amount of blood that is covering up his stump. Oh yeah, there it is. She actually is eating his leg. So there it is.
She's just fucking hot dogging it.
So as a result of this, the Demon Queen is able to recover somewhat because she's able to eat some flesh. And she starts to swell up all weirdly as they're trying to tend to Cislo's horrible wound. As Ray's just like, she looks kind of weird. And her body explodes, basically. Not like literally explodes, but it just kind of expands outward really quickly in a bunch of different directions. A whole bunch of limbs grow out, grab all of the corpses in the entire room and start pulling them in and eating them. And they're like, oh, God, even the ones that are contaminated with poison, she's just eating them. And she's just getting bigger and bigger. Not just that. What is that? Is that also a demon? Because her body's shape is changing more and more. So they're wondering if it's the fact that her cells are losing control because of the regeneration and poison together. Norman wonders what the hell is going on because she is certain that he destroyed the queen's core. So they're like, what if she doesn't die even if you destroy her core? Which is a line delivered by Ray, and I feel as though it should be like something way stupider or something like, what if she doesn't die even if you kill her?
What about if you make her dead? Does she die then?
What if she dies? Would she die?
But if I murder her, can she still live?
So they wonder if it's possible that the royal family actually have multiple cores within their bodies, so that they're just basically even more impossible to kill. So Norman orders Vincent to take Cislo and everyone to the base. He will stay with Zazie to try and finish off the queen. And so they set off. Zazie takes up his swords, and they turn to face her. Ray and Emma stay behind too because they can help, right? Sure. Then freaking okay, so a whole bunch of faces start appearing.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually a really good Halloween chapter, I guess, because there's just entire masses of faces, all with different individual voices, calling out for different people. Some of them calling out for Emma and Ray and Norman, in fact, including Crone. I think that was her name, right?
Yep.
Krone. So Emma wonders if it's all the people the queen has eaten until this time, which would mean that we would have confirmation of who actually ate her. So they're wondering what the hell is happening, what they're supposed to do. And then the entire mass splits apart, and something that looks much more like the original queen's body steps out, complete with a very fanciful dress and heels, but she has no face. Dun, dun, dun. And we don't get a chapter next week.
Nope.
So
We don't get a chapter for most series next week, don't we?
I guess it's because the magazine's being delayed until after we would normally do it. It's not until next Friday that stuff is coming out.
Yeah, I assume.
So that means there's nothing coming out this week, basically.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Black Clover then, Nick. Chapter 225, The Heart Kingdom, which is...
Well, there's a bunch of series that are coming out the 27th. So I guess it's just some series aren't showing up in the magazine next week.
Maybe some are just taking a week off. It sounds like...
I think Promised Neverland's taking a week off.
Okay. I think the production probably, I believe, got delayed at some process due to the typhoon.
Entirely possible.
So I assume that's why there's a delay in Promised Neverland. Like, it goes back to schedule the week after that or something like that. I don't know. But all right. So the Heart Kingdom, our heroes arrived. They immediately meet Gaja, a spirit guardian, who will be serving as their guide here, who recognizes Mimosa and is like, "Hey, good to see you. Here, take this.
Have some juice.
Yeah, take this fanciful juice. I have juice magic." As we will begin to transport you, and a giant staircase of water appears. That then,
they actually make a note that the juice gets more delicious if you run magic through it.
Mm-hmm.
So Noelle's like, "Oh, this is delicious," and Ness like, "Please make mine tasty too."
So the queen has actually made this pathway of water for them, and Asta's really surprised, like, "Wow, the queen with just one magic spell did this?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, the queen's mana kind of runs across the entire country. She's very, very strong." We saw a bunch of butterflies are like flocking to them and everything like that. Everyone's like, "Wow, what a great kingdom. This is awesome." They note that it's been 12,000 years since the country was founded, and there's always sort of been an acting priestess that functions as a queen who makes a pledge with the water spirit that is used to protect the kingdom. And presumably that's the giant water-like creature we saw hovering behind the queen in the last chapter, because that seems to be what we see in this chapter as well. And they say, hey, kind of encourage this kingdom and how it's functioned. So, everyone's impressed that they're like, wow, a single queen governs everything here through peaceful methods. And he's like, yes, that is how it's been till now. But no one really knows what the future may hold. And so, yoink! And Asta just gets teleported away. And everyone's like, what the fuck, Gaja?
Well, he's being carried away in water.
Yeah, like a water sphere encircles him and just starts splashes him away. And everyone's like, what the fuck, Gaja? And he's like, it's for peace.
Peaceful.
So, Mimosa and Noelle are like, well, we're going after him. So, Finro uses a new technique. At least I don't recall him using this one before. Well, they always fucking make up new ones. Called Fallen Angel's Wing Beat, where he basically used his spatial magic to boost the two of them forward, as he is going to follow along afterwards. But Gaja is immediately already behind them, so he's like, uh-oh.
Yoink.
But, Noelle saves him by kind of covering him in a water sphere that he just splashes out the other side on. And everyone's like, well, we don't know what you're trying to do here. And, Noelle activates her Valkyrie mode. She's like, I'm a royal, and if you think you're messing with my companions, then you're get messed up, hombre.
Finro notably observes Gaja floating in the air, and he's like, is he doing that without using magic? So,
and they're like, wow. Noelle Gaja mentions at one point that he's like, oh, Finro, your magic's about 3rd stage or so. But when he sees Noelle's magic, he says, ooh, that magic is rare and powerful. Definitely 1st stage. And he says, well, if that's what you're going to do, then I will also deal with you in interest. And a bunch of magic runes start surrounding him. Also, I don't know if it's supposed to be worth noting, his book was really plain before, but once he uses his magic, it actually becomes excessively ornate. So I don't know if Tabata maybe just didn't want to draw all the intricacies on the panel a couple pages before, but maybe it's also tied to how his mana or his spell works. Asta gets transported down a gigantic hole and is greeted by a water creature in armor with a sword who says, I've been waiting for you, devil, for the sake of my country.
2 things.
Okay.
One, Nero was on Asta's head when he got sucked into the sea dragon thing, but when Asta lands at the end of the chapter, we don't really see her there. So I don't know if she fell off at some point during the transportation or if it's just the angle, so you can't tell if she's there or not. 2, I have to wonder, especially now that we get another look at this water armor servant of the Queen's, because a big deal was made when Noelle unleashed her Valkyrie armor thing that it was the same technique that her mother used. And so I have to wonder if there is some connection there.
I feel like there has to be, because it feels way too significant for a water kingdom with a specific water mage, and Noelle is there.
Yeah. But, it was a pretty good chapter, actually.
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
One Piece, chapter 959, Samurai. We basically get a montage for about the first half of this chapter that showed stuff before the plan apparently went to shit. Not a whole lot significant to make note of, but there are some little moments like Frankie's ship making group managed to get a whole bunch of stuff ready so that they would actually be able to transport up to 5,000 people, and their army did get to about 4,200. So I guess Frankie won that bet. We also see Luffy and Chopper and Brook playing dress up, but non-samurai armor that will be useless to all of them. But hey, they look cool. So. Mm-hmm. And then Sanji kind of like jokes with Zoro, and he's just like, "Hey, why don't you try putting some of that stuff on?" Zoro's like, "It'll slow me down." And Sanji's like, "That's why your bounty is lower." So Zoro swings his sword at Uzema to cut off like the part of the coast that Sanji's standing on. So, yay. I also like that it's the same area that he had cut off before. So you see the bit that had already fallen off is flat, and so now he's just cut off another strip of the land. We see a bit of a conversation taking place between a bunch of the minks, along with Robin and Nami, because they make note of the fact that the day of the invasion is going to be a full moon, but they think that the sky's going to be so covered over with clouds that they're not going to be able to transform. And Nami's like, yeah, I mean, it would be nice if all the minks could transform like Carrot, and they'd be a huge force on our side, but Wanda says, turning Sulong depends on the luck of the moment. What's more important is just that the Cat Viper and the Guardians arrive here in time. Then, probably the most important moment of the entire chapter, something that I had not thought of, but Luffy did, therefore Luffy is smarter than me. Luffy points out the fact that Big Mom arrived on the island, but Jinbei's not here. And of course, Jinbei had stayed behind to hold off Big Mom so that Luffy and the others could escape before. So how the hell has Big Mom arrived if Jinbei is, not dead, basically? Mm-hmm. But Luffy is determined that he's alive and that he will come because he promised that he would join the Straw Hats. So then we see some of the Shogun's men approach village, specifically Abisu Town, with all of the smiling, laughing people and stuff. And Otsuru approaches. That's not Abisu Town. My mistake. Different town. Anyway, Abisu Town, outside of the Flower Capital. One of the towns. There's too many places in this goddamn kingdom. And the lion-stomached guy, Hold'em, from way back before, that Luffy took out really easily, is there to basically Sheriff and Nottingham them a little bit. But also they're investigating. They're saying that the samurai are preparing for a big raid. Otsuru, Kinemon's wife, basically tries to distract them. She's like, okay. I'll make sure that they don't find you, Kinemon. You've got to bring back the Kazuki days. But some of the people in the village say, like, Otsuru, don't sacrifice yourself to cover for us. It's all right. Our dream of stuffing ourselves full before we die has been fulfilled. And she reacts with shock as Hold'em looks down at them. But then we cut ahead to not 2 days before the battle, but the night before the battle. And we essentially see that under Orochi's instruction, all of the pathways and bridges and such that could have led to the Tokage port are getting firebombed. In fact, some of the animal men spot the Thousand Sunny hiding in a cave, and they firebomb that too. Wah! And they firebomb all the ships. And so Orochi is just like, I haven't seen any of the samurai for myself, but we're to believe they flew here from 20 years in the past from that burning castle. Hard to believe without seeing their heads in person. Hard to believe even with seeing them, I imagine. So it's hard enough to get my vows to believe the story. And then that idiot Yasuye had to go and make it worse. He made out to be a joke, but the intel is solid. Consider my words to be nonsense at your own peril. I have the power to act upon them. If I cut off all the routes to Tokage Port, what will you do then? 4,000 men? Very impressive, but not one of them will arrive here. Hear me, Akazaya ghosts. You will taste the despair of being utterly alone in the world. You will not even have the chance to attempt your revenge. And then finally we cut to the present, the same scene that we had left off on last chapter, with all of the Yagazaya reacting to their fleet not being there, not being able to get in contact with anyone. And Momonosuke is shouting out to all of them as they're still trying to set off on the little canoe to get out to sea, saying that this is suicide, that they've got to try and wait for another chance. But Kinemon says that the next opportunity that they would have would not be for another year, so they can't stay in hiding any longer, especially because their control will be revealed momentarily, and Kaido will just send out his army and hunt down the rebels, and so they can't wait any longer. They've got to do this, and also they have a responsibility to do this because of all the people in Okabore town who believed in their plan, took responsibility for their crimes. The village was burnt to the ground. My wife was among them. So apparently that's how that village scene played out in the previous flashback. So he begs Momonosuke to let them do this because otherwise they would flee and just be further shamed. And Momonosuke is like, well, what happens to me then? And they're like, you need to live. You need to find Lady Hiyori. And Momonosuke's like, no, you can't do this. Kinemon says, your Lord Father started out alone too. If we hadn't come across Lord Odin, we would never have been proper samurai. We were all untested youth, which is why to the very last moment, we wish to be Lord Odin's samurai. And then we get a flashback to 39 years ago in the Flower Capital as Kazuki Odin returns from his excursion. And there's a very weird line as he approaches of some guy saying, hide your daughters, hide your wives. Which is like, okay.
Hey, he's a big tough
ladies
dude.
Man.
Yeah, look at that. Doesn't look like he's wearing pants. So
hairy legs and those sandals.
Yeah, so he's going to seduce them all with his legs.
The point is that we're going to get a flashback of Odin's return.
Yeah, so. And this is right about the right time for it, I think. We're in this third act. This is to give us the final piece of context for all of everything in this series, or for this arc. And I'm really excited. I really like how this chapter went down. I like that we got all these different sort of elements there. Everything looks like it's at its worst for our heroes, but we do know there's hope out there. As I mentioned, Jinbei's out there somewhere. We know he's going to show up in some fashion here. We know that like all our characters are kind of trying to do things. I like that there was just a moment where Sanji jokes with Zoro and you see him cut another giant chunk of the island off in anger. It's very cool. It's getting me super excited. I'm really excited to see this flashback because, you know, this is sort of Oda's strong point, is usually making really compelling, really engaging stories about these places. I wasn't a huge fan of Skypiea, but the moment you get the flashback, you're like, oh shit, everything falls into place, and now I care about this place, and I want to see Skypiea freed from like the tyranny of this god. So I'm thinking that's going to be the same thing here, where we're like, oh, now I really want to see Orochi brought down.
It's going to be interesting to see things play out. I admit that I'm kind of pissed off. It's like, oh, now you're doing a flashback right on this big cliffhanger, and we still haven't had that whole thing. What happened outside of Wano and stuff like that? But it's like that's One Piece. And
yeah, so
like,
that's
here's a little dangling. You gotta wait for it now.
Remember the time where you had a character wind up to punch, and there was like a 6-chapter backstory before the character punched them? God, fucking, that's still one of the greatest moments in this series. All right, let's do MVPs.
Yes, let's wrap things up now. Thank you guys for joining us for the manga recap. No, we're not covering Shokugeki no Sanji. No, it was. I don't even remember when that actually ran.
I was going to say, wasn't that back when the magazine was still around?
Yeah, so I think that was already in the magazine, and so I think they just put the one shot out separately because that's, you know, Shonen Jump works differently now. Yeah. So it wasn't actually a new release; it was like from the archive.
Yeah. So for my chapter of the week, I am giving it, chapter of the week, I'm going to give it to One Piece because, like I said, I'm super excited about this chapter. I'm really, really excited to see where this is going to go, and I like all the build up here. Like I'm more excited for One Piece than I've been probably in a while.
There were a lot of good chapters this week now that I think about it. I am going to give mine to My Hero Academia. I know that it was not a very eventful chapter, but it was probably the one that really took me most by surprise, except for the big Ibarra twist in Doctor Stone. I just really liked seeing the way that Endeavor and Todoroki and Bakugo have, gone through some changes and are trying to get better. It's really weird that you have that many characters get focused on in a chapter, and you're like, huh, Deku has evolved the least since we last checked on him.
And my MVP I'm going to give to Yor from Spy Family. I thought it was a really fun chapter for her. I loved her faces. I loved just how exaggerated everything got. I thought she was really, really funny this week. And I don't know. I guess that kind of gave me the biggest reminder, I guess I should say, of how amusing she was.
I'm gonna give mine to Aruka. I really liked not just seeing her acting silly and stuff like that, but it was surprising and really cool to see her just have a very straightforward conversational English thing in a heat of a moment. And it's like, hey, all that hard work of hers has really paid off, and she's going to actually be able to follow this dream of hers. And then, of course, the focus on that's actually a bittersweet thing because of the evolving relationship between herself and Yuiga and how her going away is going to affect that. So it's really cool.
So I'll note that the audience picked Spy Family as their favorite chapter this week. And
it was a good chapter.
We won't know who this is until next week. But Reze from Chainsaw Man won Character of the Week. So
I don't know if one of two things is going to happen here. Either once I'm caught up next week, I'm going to be like, all right, I get why everyone likes Chainsaw Man and I can enjoy little parts of it. Or I'm going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with all of you? Because it keeps on coming in, like with this, like, oh, favorite chapter and favorite character and stuff like that. And I know right now I don't have context for it. I'm not going to judge or anything like that. But once I do, one of the two reactions is going to happen. And so we'll see.
All right. Stay tuned for next week where Nick decides if he likes Chainsaw Man or not.
You're going to want to tune in for that because we are going to be adding Chainsaw Man to the recap regardless of how I feel about it this time. So I'm stuck with this now. But we're going to have a, look back at the previous couple dozen chapters and we'll see how it comes out. All right. That's going to do everyone for Weekly Manga Recap. We want to thank you guys for joining us this week here on twitch.tv/RoloT, smashcast.tv/RoloT, where we record the show each Wednesday, usually around 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow us on Twitter at WMR Podcast, at RoloT, at Nick F. Time, at Thor, God of Thunder.
I think it's just at Thor.
At
Stormbreaker,
Stormbreaker forged in the last Ur of a Dying Star.
The space station with a giant Peter Dinklage.
Don't know how we managed to get. Got over the 15 character limit for the God of Thunder.
They don't let me use the entire thing on Twitter, so that's why Thor's moved to Mastodon. Me and two other Twitch streamers are the big people over on Mastodon, so make sure you get over there and read our tusks or whatever the fuck they call posts over on Mastodon.
I've heard good things about Mastodon, but I don't think it's gonna give you as wide an audience. But anyway, you can follow us on Twitter. You can also check us out on YouTube, weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, and on iTunes. Be sure to subscribe, leave a rating, comment, subscription, and all that stuff is good for the algorithm. Helps us to conquer the hobby section, defeat the woodworkers sitting on their throne of wood and lies. Wood and lies, and wooden lies.
There's monsters.
Bastards. Where was I? Special thanks go out to our Patreon supporters. Special thanks goes out to NinjaX3i for maintaining the Google Doc. You can go onto our Discord server and check all that stuff out. You can also just, have conversations about manga and other general things. I don't know all the conversations that go on there. There are a lot of them. Anyway. Special thanks to Infamous Planet for the stuff that you do, Steve Mann, our tower card artist, and Winsley Dale Cheddar, and Milo Jack Stillitz for the opening sequence of Week Manga Recap.
Dude.
That's it. Next time we'll talk
go.
about Chainsaw Man for our Super Halloween catch-up. manga retrospective.
And now that my work here is done on this podcast, I shall now use the Rainbow Bridge to return to Asgard and claim my rightful place on the throne. Goodbye, Nicholas!
That's the lightning calling him up, by the way.
Yes.
You guys can't see it, but there's definitely lightning calling him up. He's in Asgard now. He's not there anymore.
You can hear me from Asgard! I'm shouting all the way from Asgard!
It also looks like he's there. It also looks like he's there, but he's not there. He's in Asgard now.
Nope, you can't see me. Did it leave a mark? Goodbye!
Yes.
I might return next year, depending on costume availability during the month of October.